The officials in Huron County are making sure their response skills are ready for the worst. With more on their training plan this week, here's Scott Miller.
Really what they're going to be looking at is writ large across the county. So
Huron County's decision makers have holed up in Clinton's Libro Hall to simulate an emergency they hope never actually materializes.
It's part of their emergency preparedness and planning. So we decided to do one group all together in one room simulating a heat and power outage emergency.
Mayors, fire chiefs, public works, CAOs, OPP, and paramedics from all 9 Huron County municipalities are going through what a sustained heat emergency and subsequent power outages and storm damage could leave in its wake. It's an annual exercise mandated by Emergency Management Ontario.
Every municipality needs to be prepared for any kind of event. Unfortunately, Goderich had a tornado several years ago, and this helps our municipality and our mayor deal with and know our current infrastructure, our critical infrastructure, how to respond in the event of an emergency.
Now, this tabletop emergency exercise happening here in Huron County today is sort of the precursor to a much larger emergency exercise happening this weekend in Huron and Bruce County involving the military. 800 Canadian Army reservists will simulate fighting wildfires, search and rescue, and wellness checks across the 2 counties on May 3rd to 5th.
So it is the same premise that the military exercise is based on. It's a heat event with a power outage where the military might have to respond after a tornado and some fires, where they'd be coming in to assist with municipalities in clearing brushes, setting up water distribution and cooling stations.
Exercise Trillium Venture will be most evident this Saturday as the military mobilizes across Huron and Bruce County. Today's exercise in Clinton is getting officials ready for that kind of disaster and what they'd be expected to do to try and keep people safe.
And that's what they're practicing today. It's essentially just a practice for a live event.
This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. I wanted to do a video on this because a few weeks ago, I'm sure a lot of you haven't heard, but in a small town in Canada, they ran a scenario where the police were conducting door-to-door, quote-unquote, wellness checks. And when we hear the word wellness check, we think of, somebody hasn't heard from a loved one in some time, right? You might have a cousin, a brother, sister, a friend, haven't been able to get a hold of them in a few days, right? You start to worry about them. What happened to them? So you call the police and you say, hey, could you go over there and do a wellness check? I just want to make sure my friend or my loved one is safe, right? Well, this is Big Brother now normalizing doing wellness checks on you. And it's not a wellness check to see if you're okay. It's actually preparation to make sure that you're compliant. You see, they're going to check on your door, they're going to knock, and they're not going to knock to see if you're alive or actually give a crap if you're alive. They're going to knock and check in, kind of like what you used to see in propaganda films about Big Brother knocking on the door to see if maybe you were hiding somebody inside that you shouldn't have been hiding, or maybe you have something inside that you shouldn't have, like food or water. At a time of crisis when the government shuts off the power grid, and they decide that, you have survival food, you have to share that with everybody because you were prepared. And the same people who want you to share it with them are the same ones who were trying to silence you during all the time you were trying to help them get prepared, right? So anytime the government runs an exercise, we all should know automatically. It's an exercise for something that's going to be normalized and something that is to come, right? We've seen the government run exercises all the time that have gone live. That marathon in Boston, that 11th day of the month of September, that event 201, right? These simulations they always seem to do end up going into real time because they're just preparation for it. They're not doing this for no reason, right? Even in Maui, they were running a test, an experiment, they told us, right? They were having a meeting at the same time as that blaze about the same exact subject. It's so convenient, isn't it? So the Canadian Armed Forces were just part, a few weeks ago, of an extreme heat scenario exercise in communities throughout Ontario. That's right, extreme heat scenarios. Now, you might say, they were maybe just worried about people because of the fires, right? The fires that they started themselves, the government, right? Well, think about this when they start controlling your meters in your home because they're already doing that. If you've allowed them to put a smart meter on your home, you better go look and make sure you don't have one because the time's running out to get rid of it. The smart meter, it's going to monitor how much electricity you're using. And then the boogeyman that you don't know is going to be able to shut it off and say that you have used too much electricity when you're running your heat or your air condition. they're going to have the ability to shut it off and on, and you're going to have allotted time that you could use it, like a prisoner has allotted recess time, right? So this is a scenario for that, where they're checking on you. It's a heat scenario. Are you okay? The exercise is called Trillium Venture, and it just took place. And according to a press release, the purpose of the exercise is to enhance interoperability with other governmental departments as we work together to respond to a simulated extreme heat scenario, right? Which is exactly what we're seeing, just it's not simulated. We're seeing in real time the government use direct energy weapons, chemtrail, aluminum dust. We're seeing the government use all these things to create and enhance fires so they can move people around, herd people out. Then the government, like in America, when these events happen, uses our tax money, comes in and buys up the property of the person who previously lived there. And they're more than thrilled to give up their property at that point because they're just happy that they get some money out of it, even though it's a lot less than what they paid for the home, right? That makes perfect sense, doesn't it? The government using our tax money to buy up land. So members of the public will see, and they just saw, the deployment of domestic response companies and territorial battalion group sustainment equipment and vehicles to validate the ability to deploy and sustain in real time, right? What's the other event, by the way, that we always see them running these drills, right? These what's the exact word? Not drill. They don't want to use the word drill. Exercise, right? They run these exercises at schools all the time, right? And then 9 times out of 10, or now let's just say 11 times out of 10, the same schools that ran the exercises previously actually have a live event happen at the school. Go figure, right? It goes on to say this is being done to create a more challenging, realistic training exercise, and will see soldiers conducting fire training, wellness checks, simulated search and rescue operations, cooling center establishment, as well as other related activities. So, obviously, a sheeple will hear this and they'll say, oh, that's great. They're checking on me, right? What do they mean by simulated search? Well, a simulated search is during an event like this. They just want to make sure that you don't have something in your home like food and water, right? Now, they'll pretend a simulated search could be a lot of different things. They'll tell you, we just want to make sure your house isn't going to catch fire. Maybe you have, thing behind the wall, you got asbestos or something. We're going to check, okay? We're going to check because we care about you, just like they cared about you during the last exercise that they ran, right? Where they gave you something for free that ended up killing you, or at least many people. And many people are still feeling the effects of it and will continue to feel the effects, many of which haven't noticed them yet, but will notice them in due time, right? So wellness checks, simulated search, right? Think about that. And then think about they go inside your home, right? So you're in your home, minding your own business. There's fires that your government's created all around you, right? You're saying, I'm glad I got food and water in my home, and I'm glad I've taken the proper precautions because I've listened to channels like the Rebel Call. But then they hear a knock on the door, and who is it? Well, it's Big Brother. Big Brother says, I just want to see if you're okay. And you say, I'm okay, thank you. And they say, well, wait, we want to come in. You say, what? Yeah, we want to come inside, take a look around. Well, you don't really have the right. I'm in my home. I'm protected here. I've got insulation. I'm making sure that I'm good. I've got food and water. Well, we're going to come inside here. Wait a minute, you got food and water. Well, your neighbors don't, so we're going to take that and confiscate it. In fact, we're looking around your house, and we see a poster on the wall that says, don't tread on me. Oh, we don't like that. We see some other, you know what? We're going to deem that your home isn't safe for you to be inside of right now. You might say, well, the fire is 100 miles away. That doesn't matter. We did a wellness check, and we're worried about your wellness. So come with us. And you'll say, well, how do you have the right to do this? And they'll say, well, remember that event that occurred after Event 201, that event in 2020? Well, we put a lot of laws and bills in place, and that was the purpose of it, so that we can come and do this. So this is a wellness check on you because of the fire. Wink, wink. And now we're going to ask you to come with us. And if you don't come with us, we're going to remove you from the house. So you get 2 options, right? And if you think about going to arm yourself, well, think again. We'll just take you down really fast, and you won't even have the option to leave. You could just die inside your house. So this is what the governments are rolling these things out, telling you that it's a wellness check. And how dumb do you have to be to believe that it's a wellness check, right? All of a sudden, the government cares about you, right? All of a sudden, the government wants to knock on your door because there's a fire up there. How about the government puts the fire out? Well, they're not going to put the fire out because the goal is to make sure the fire expands, which is why they put aluminum dust on it to make sure it continues to burn. You'd think all these people doing the wellness check during a simulation and exercise, that their main concern would be, we got a fire, we need to put it out. But no, that is not what it is, right? So according to Major Paul Pickering, not to be confused with Prickering, of 31 Canadian Brigade Group, the exercise will simulate a realistic scenario that involves a 13-day heat wave with a severe storm that causes power outages, damage to infrastructure and homes, as well as water shortages in some communities. And those are the things I just said to you, right? Water shortage. They want to make sure you have water, right? Is that what they're coming to the door for? Because I'm pretty sure if you don't have food or water, you're not going to stay inside for very long. You're going to probably go seek it out, right? So they can find you out in the streets. And they want to come in to make sure that they get any of the supplies you have. And they're going to tell you they're doing it for the benefit of the community to share it with everyone else. Now, whether or not you have things on your own saved up, I'm sure the majority of us would end up sharing with another person who's in need, right? But we don't need Big Brother's interference, do we? But of course, Big Brother thinks that they need to interfere here because they want to make sure that people don't survive what they're inflicting on them. So again, instead of focusing on putting out the power during this 13-day heat wave with a severe storm that causes power outages, they want to make sure that you got food and water as well. Wink, wink. So Pickering addressed Bruce County Council in early April to tell them that he expects around 800 military personnel, predominantly reserves, to be deployed in Huron and Bruce County. And that's where they ran the simulation. He said all measures are being taken to ensure minimum inconvenience to those in the area. Members of the public are asked to take extra caution if approaching military vehicles and troops, and are thanked in advance for their understanding and cooperation. So don't approach the military vehicle that comes up your road. How dare you approach and ask the military vehicle or the troops what in the world they're doing, okay? You might just get, you might just have yourself an accident right in the street if you come outside and try to interrupt the operation. But when they knock on your door, you better make sure you let them in. Don't you dare even ask a question, right? Welcome to a military state. So the goal of the exercise, they say, is to get to as many area communities as possible, with soldiers going door to door in towns. That's another key word, communities, right? Because remember, you'll own nothing and be happy. And these will be communities the government sets up. And within the communities, any resources are shared, which gives you less time to be able to survive on your own, which again is a goal of theirs. Because say you have a year's worth of food that you've saved for you and your kids, right? Say you've taken the proper precautions. Now, if you have kids and you have a wife or you have a husband, I'm going to guess that your top priority would be making sure your kids are fed. So when the neighbor who has the Ukraine flag up comes knocking on your door and it's been somebody that's been bothering you as far as their politics, as far as, trying to push their lifestyle on you, let's just say, when they come to the door, you might say, you know what, I don't want to share it with them because I got this in advance. I put my money into this while that person put it into, putting Ukraine flags in their home. I want to give it to my kids to make sure my kids can survive. That's why I got a year's worth. We're going to say you don't need a year's worth, right? You only need a week or two's worth. Give a month to your neighbor. And then everyone will say, that's the right thing to do. And you might say, well, I don't want to see my neighbor die. That's a little extreme. I did get this for my kids. Well, guess what? Now the time that you thought in your head that you would need to survive this predicament no longer matters because you have to share it in a community, right? It's no longer yours because the government says, well, just because you were prepared, just because you saw the writing on the wall with what we were trying to do, doesn't mean that you don't have to give it to your liberal neighbor who is part of the problem, who has caused this problem, who has said that you were a conspiracy nut for buying food in the first place, but now you need to give it to them, even though they've silenced you on social media from helping other people learn what was really going on and what the government was up to, right? This is how it all works. In the name of exercises, in the name of wellness, right? Like I've said, they're killing you with kindness. They're coming to your door smiling at you as they take what's left of your food supply. They're coming to the door smiling at you as they handcuff you away in a paddy wagon. That's what these people are doing. That's how they're getting away with it in some senses, which is insane because there's people with zero discernment as to what the government's doing. So they see the Joe Bidens of the world, the Justin Trudeau's. And it's amazing for all of us to look at people who actually support these psychopaths, right? It's insane to think that there's people who support them. But they're killing them with kindness. They're killing them with how they look and present themselves. So they smile at you while they tell you what they're doing. Like Agenda 2030, for example. They're smiling, saying this is the goal and the plan for 2030. And if you actually look at what they're saying, it says, oh, wow, well, we want to reduce the population and we want to take away cars and we want to take away the ability to heat your home and wood burning stoves. You'd say, whoa, these people are smiling while they're telling us this stuff? Yeah, because they're killing you with the smile. And this is how they're bringing about this new world order. They're literally ignoring all truths. And if you ask a question, they just smile at you and tell you you're crazy while they're doing it. It's like stabbing someone and smiling. That's what they're doing. They're stabbing you and smiling at you while you're going, you're killing me. And they're going, no, I'm not. And they stab you in the heart. And then they look at their Democratic supporters who are communists and don't realize it. And they go, don't worry about it. This is for his best interest. This is good for him that I'm stabbing him in the heart. And then those people go, okay, well, it's in your best interest that he's doing it. And that's how dumbed down the people have become. And that's why they're called sheeple. So we're going to see this stuff going on. Door-to-door wellness checks. Because guess what? They just did door-to-door wellness checks, right? But were the door-to-door wellness checks during the outbreak for your wellness? No, they were to see if you were cooperating. Were you breaking curfew? Were there people inside? Did you have a social outing? Did you allow a neighbor inside? And are you social distancing in there, right? Think about the stuff they did in China. They were locking people inside of their apartment buildings. They had military armed guards outside their doors. And even while the buildings were catching fire, they weren't letting you leave because they were afraid that somebody might get the common cough, and it was probably better that you burned alive than to spread the common cough, you know? And these people out there still don't see it, right? They still don't see it. Why don't they see it? Because they don't want to admit that they're wrong, but this isn't about being right or wrong. This is about stopping tyranny from happening. And it has to do with Trump. It has to do with Biden. It has to do with all the political parties. They are the ones dividing us. They are the ones stripping us of our rights. They're the ones who are putting wellness checks in place. And all you have to do is look at it and say, how would a Democrat feel if Trump was putting in a wellness check? Well, they would be like, he's violating my rights. And that's how everybody needs to look at everything. Not at the party, just the people. Who are they to come and do a wellness check? See, the Democrats go, well, this is Trudeau. He's one of us. He's just doing it for the fire. But if it was Trump saying he was doing it for the fire, they would say Trump's going to come to our door and he's going to see that we have a trans child and he's going to take him away, right? That's how they view it, because they don't want to admit that they were wrong. And it's not about being right or wrong. It's about stopping it. We got to get out of this whole mindset of, and I'm not in it, but I mean, conservatives and Democrats need to get out of the mindset that their vote counts, that they're part of a party. You're not a part of anything. You're a part of a deception. The people are what they fear. The people realizing what's really happening, because there's a small majority of them. But as long as they keep us divided, they can continue to do things like tell us that they're coming to our door for a wellness check to see, if you have food and water while there's a fire up the road. And instead of putting the fire out, their concern is getting you out of your home or getting the food out of your home for your quote unquote community, because that's how all of this works. I thank everybody for being here. Let me know if you're having a wellness check in your town. What are you going to do if there's a wellness check in your town? Are you going to get too close to the tanks? Are you going to get too close to the people at the door? Because you're not allowed to ask them why they're there, okay? Don't harass them by asking them why they're there. Kind of like the same way the government behaves now. If you ask them a question, you're guilty of hate speech, right? If you ask them a question, you're a racist, depending on their skin color. Or you're homophobic, depending, if they're gay or not, right? If you ask them a question, that's what this has turned into. Nobody out there realizes. It's very easy to see. You don't need the greatest discernment in the world. All you need is just to be able to call out bullcrap when you see it. All you need to do is to be able to see manipulators in action, because they're all over the place in both political parties. I thank you for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always, and your families.